Hey, I'm Joel Wanasek. I'm a pro mixer and the co-founder of NailTheMix.com, the coolest place to learn how to mix music in the entire universe of metal. Today, we're going to rant it out since you've been giving me really good feedback on the other couple that I've done. And we're going to talk about a really important topic that I think doesn't get talked about very much in music, which is super important, even though it's not that sexy, like, multi-band compression or something like that. And that, my friends, is time management. So if you're a working professional or aspiring to be one, or just trying to figure out how to have enough time to do music in your free time so you could maybe transition into becoming a pro at some point, this is for you. And let's talk about that today. So I want you to imagine this scenario, okay? Because it seems like no matter where you are or who you are, at some point in your life, you are either so busy you can't keep your head above water, or you are sitting around with absolutely nothing to do. And it just seems like the way the world works, that there's nothing in the middle that allows you to essentially, as we'd put it, have some sort of balance in your life. So how do we manage our time better in the studio? And I'll give you an example. So I just put an SSL Origin 32 channel console in my room, and I was down for 7 days under there rewiring my entire studio. And miraculously, a ton of projects just all showed up that week. And everybody's like, hey, I've got, 13 songs to mix and we're in a hurry. And you're like, oh my God. I'm like, well, I don't have a way to mix right now. My entire rig is down and in shambles on the floor, and I'm hooking things up and plugging in D subs and testing cables and things like that. So naturally, when I came back from that at the very end of last week, I have been mixing my butt off all the way through the holiday and stuff like that and working myself to death. So that being said, how do you manage a situation like that, when you are so busy that you don't have any time to get anything done? So imagine like 8 different artists being like, hey, where's my song? I need this. This is due in 3 days. Where do you start? We can break this down strategically into a couple different things to help you prioritize your time and your workload. And this applies even if you have like an office job, you know what I mean, or whatever. You can apply this to anywhere. But I think the first and most important thing to do when you have an insurmountable load is to just do one thing at a time, right? But most importantly, just find the one thing that matters the most, that's the most important and usually the hardest, and do that first. So for example, if I have 13 songs to mix and I've only got, say, a week to do it, and that can get a little stressful, you're working a lot of hours, I'm gonna take the biggest artist with the biggest dire need, or the biggest producer, or whatever like the top flight, top tier act is, and I'm gonna slam that out first and get that out of the way, right? Because that is like the one thing where whatever can move the mountain the farthest down the stream, like that's the thing that you have to prioritize. So I always do the hardest, most difficult, biggest, baddest task first, get that off of my plate and get that out of my brain RAM, because nothing's worse than doing a bunch of low-hanging easy fruit, stuff that isn't like super complicated or, and getting that out of the way. But then just the whole time you're just stressing out about this really difficult or really hard project or massive project or big project, that there's a lot of stakes on. So start there. Start with the hardest thing, the most difficult thing, or the biggest, most important thing, and get that off your plate and out of your brain RAM so you can then concentrate and focus. So I usually kind of try to go in order of importance. Now, what happens if something is in equal importance, then again, you got to kind of prioritize and pick like, okay, maybe this band has, no time frame, a couple weeks is fine. And another band is like, I need this in 4 days. And another artist is like, I need this in 3.5 days or in overnight or whatever. So if things are of equal importance, then do those. So whatever is next in terms of the time frame, like what's due, get that out of the thing so you can build yourself what we call runway, some lead time to work. The next thing that's really important to mention while you're doing that is when you have a lot of work that comes in at once, it is to clearly communicate with people so you can give them a reasonable expectation, but then deliver at a faster rate. Okay, and this is super important because if I say, hey, yeah, I'll have it tomorrow, and I tell 13, different artists that I'll have their stuff tomorrow, but then I can only deliver, let's just say 5 of those things. Now I have to say, yeah, I know I said I would have it tomorrow, but it's going to be another day. Well, okay, that can happen once or twice, but after that, you're screwed. They're going to be pissed off. They're not going to be happy, and you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So you can't roll that way. It's much better to say, okay, these are the 5 things I need to get done in this order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pad in a day or 2 of leeway time, at least, right? Because things will go wrong. And you always try to budget your time where every project will be a disaster. So as conservative as you can. So you can say, hey, look, I'm out 2 weeks, even though in your mind you're like, I'm really out like 5 or 6 days. Be like, I'm out 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, I'll sit down and I'll start on your stuff. And you can kind of check in with the artist during the time. You can say, hey, I got your files. Okay. It's being prepped right now by my assistant, or I've looked at everything really quickly and everything seems like it's in order. So, we're still planning on starting on this day, etc. So as long as you communicate with people ahead of time and let them know what's going on and just kind of check in to let them make sure that they know that you care and that they're in your brain RAM while you're aggressively knocking out other stuff, it's much, much better. So giving yourself lead time and the ability to cue things, right, in terms of importance, and communicating that is the surefire way to success. I mean, you absolutely have to do it. So the next tip here that you can employ is that you need to be super organized. Now, obviously that's a given, but it's harder to do in reality than it is in action. So I am not a very organized person in terms of like paperwork and tracking and things like that. I'm very, very organized and efficient when it comes to actually getting work done. I'm fanatic, but I have an assistant who is insanely organized and is always on top of it and things like that. So, we've sat down to create systems that help us get through these projects. So for example, I have a tracking spreadsheet with all the projects I'm working on, the agreed rate of the project, the time frame that it needs to get done, and I can kind of put stars in an order of importance and things like that. And that helps me sit down and just be like, look, okay, I've got 13 songs to mix. And out of the 13 songs, these 2 are like the most priority. So let's get those done first. And then these 3 after that. And then I've got, 6 songs from the same artist and I've got 2 weeks on that. And, I can sit there and work on that. And then if an artist hits me up and it's like, hey, I've got something next week, I can say, boom, I can very quickly look at my workload and say, all right, yeah, it's going to be 2.5 weeks. And in reality, I'll just try to get it done in like a week. So when you do it and you're really organized with your file prep, your intake, your organization, for example, like if I'm on a console, what's the recall? What template are we using for organizing our files and, groups and routing in the computer when we're mixing and things like that, having all of that stuff set up and on call so you can track it, so you can organize it, so you can archive it, so you can back it up, etc. Creating those systems will take you a half a day to a day, but it will save you so much headache and so much time. So that is the next point, is you need to be super organized. Another great tip for being really, really productive is at some point when you get busy, professionally, you need to outsource. Now, naturally, in our brains, we have this strange incentive cost bias where we're like, well, if I just do everything by myself, I'll make more money. But that's actually false. And I can tell you as somebody who owns some companies that you are the sum of your team, not just what you can do, because you might be good at everything, right? But there are other people that are great at some things that you might only just be good at. I'll give you an example. There's a ton of producers that I mix for. And while all of them are really good mixers, they come to me to mix because I'm better at it than they are. And they're better at producing than I am. So, they can get that out of their brain RAM. They don't have to sit there and struggle with a mix for 2 days because they can send it to me at 2:00 in the afternoon. And I can have them a mix back by 5:30 that same day while they're in the room banging out a single with an artist and a couple of other writers and stuff. And I can send them that mixed and the artist could hear it in real time. Like they literally just cut it, went out to lunch, came back, added some overdubs, and all of a sudden, boom, they're getting a mix back of that song. And they're all sitting there with their management. And everybody's like, damn, this slaps. And you can see how the producer looks really good in that scenario and is going to be super happy about it. It's a win-win scenario. So same thing. There's a lot of low-level tasks that you can take, that you can outsource as a producer, or as a mixer, etc. That will save you a lot of time. And the reason is like if you pay somebody an hourly rate, for example, to do your editing, you're like, okay, well, I lost some money. Great. But, if you lose, let's just say 10% of your income, but now you can take twice as many projects. Now you just doubled your income minus that, let's just say 10 or 20%. So you've made a lot more money because you can now double the amount of songs that you can mix, or you can write, or you can produce. So the really, really good producers and writers, what they do is they'll bring in top liners to write stuff. They will hire mixers to mix their demos. They will hire mastering engineers. They'll hire editors to edit the stuff that they just recorded because they don't want to sit there for 6 hours and edit a bunch of vocals. They just want to be in the groove with the artist so they can write a song every single day and trigger a really big production fee. So for them, it's better to do it. Same thing mixing. I could sit here and mix everything myself, but I am so thankful and glad that I have an assistant who, one, can help me do all my guitar tones and stuff like that because he's an expert in it. Two, can prep all of these mixes and get everything set up so when I throw it up on my board, I'm rocking and rolling. And third, just having another opinion in the room who's got a really good set of ears. We can bounce back and forth and we can kind of work on it as a team and be like, I think this is sounding good, but I'm losing perspective. You can just go, I think the bottom end's a little bit too flubby, or, I think we got the guitars up a little bit too loud, or the vocals don't feel quite balanced yet, or, you know what I mean? Like, we're going to hear different things. So that allows me to get more mixes done, put them out at a higher quality, and have a higher level of consistency. So outsourcing is really important at some point when you're really busy, and to build a team. And if you can do that, it'll help you scale your business and allow you to do more work and, in fact, make more money. Another strategy here for time management is you can always just say no. You know what I mean? Like, you can always turn something down if you're too overwhelmed. Because like I said, the problem is it's like you might be talking to 20 different artists and they'll be like, yeah, I'll have this and this time. And you lay out your schedule. Then of course it will all come during the same week, because this is just how the world works. It's chaos. No one can explain it. Somebody will be like, yeah, I'll have this song to you on Monday. And then you'll get the song 3 weeks from now when you have 6 other songs to mix that are on your schedule. And then of course that person will be in a hurry because it took them forever to get it to you. And like, everybody will be all stressed out. So, you can say no, or you can be really organized and prepared, but don't be afraid to say no and turn things down. It's not going to end the world. It's better to say no than it is to do a half-assed job. Up until now, we've talked about a situation of how to handle your time when you're a professional to be more effective. Now let's talk about some things that you can do if you are, too busy to do your music and you want to spend more time doing music. Like, for example, I got 3 kids, you know what I mean? I have a home life and I have to balance 2 other businesses, and then I have to find time to mix. I'm always working all the time. So it's really, really, really complicated. Now, I also remember when I had a day job and I'd go to the office and I would work all day and I'd come home totally exhausted. I would sit down and then I'd be like, well, I should probably go down to the studio and start grinding on my skills and try to get some clientele in here and stuff like that. So what do you do in that type of situation if that's your life? Or maybe you've got a family, maybe you've got a day job and you really don't have much time. Well, I know a lot about that because, like I said, having 3 children, I've learned how to balance my time, because obviously being dad, you want to be home and you want to be present with your kids and investing in them so they don't just grow up by themselves without a father, right? So for me, that's an important priority. Now, that being said, I still work like 70 to 90 hour weeks. So how do you pull it off? And there's a couple thoughts I have on the matter. So one thing is, if you have a day job, right, and you don't have a lot of time to do music, I think it's really, really important to find a time and schedule it and kind of power through it. I'll give you an example. No one ever has time to do anything. But if you audit your day, you will find time and you will find things that you can improve and optimize on that you can increase. I'll give you an example. So I go to the store a lot, right? I have to buy a lot of food for kids and I got to drive around and like go, the shoes aren't good. And, the soccer ball got punctured at soccer practice. So you need to go find a new ball for the kid. And like, you know what I mean? There's an endless amount of time that I have to drive around and go to various stores. One thing I've done is I've centrally located my life in terms of where I live, where I can drive in 10 minutes and get to any major store and get anything. I don't live like out in the middle of nowhere, but I live in a place where I can drive to my office in less than 10 minutes. I can drive to the store in less than 10 minutes. I found a location to live in, which, while it's not perfect, it definitely speeds up the amount of time. So I don't have to commute 2 hours a day to my studio and back. That's very, very unproductive. So I've set my life up in a way that allows me to be more efficient with that stuff. The next thing you can do is you can take your downtime and apply it. So for example, say you're studying audio, right? You're listening to something like this, or maybe you're doing Nail the Mix, etc., and you want to passively listen to some stuff. You can always get a pair of headphones like I have sitting over here, and you can pop them into your phone while you're going to the grocery store with your shopping list, and just put your phone in your shopping cart with a pair of headphones and listen to something like somebody mixing or a podcast or, an audiobook or something like that. You can sit there and learn something in your downtime. I can't tell you how many times I go to the store and I'm the only idiot in there wearing a pair of headphones, just totally listening to somebody else mix and talk about mixing or podcasting or doing an audiobook, and everyone else is just flopping around the store, screwing her off, not using their time very well. I'm studying while I'm at the store because that is when I have time to do it. Going back to what I was saying, if you schedule your time every day, just like people do to work out, like from 5:30 in the morning to 6, I go to the gym, and I do that every day religiously. Okay, you have to do the same thing with your music. You have to sit down and say, okay, from if I can't do it at night, I'm tired, I'm going to get up a half hour earlier and try to get to bed a little bit earlier. And I'm going to go spend, from 5:30 to 6:45 in the studio. Then I'm going to get ready for work, get the kids to school, whatever. So if you schedule your time, and treat it like it's a religious holiday or something. You know what I mean? Like, you don't miss it for any excuse ever, and you just do it every day. You, in fact, will have more time. And like I said, then you can find those little pockets of downtime. For example, like you're driving in the car and you have to commute anyways. You can use that for your education. I use it to do deals. I sit down and call artists and stuff like that. Talk about mix notes and things like that. I do that in the car. So when I'm in the studio, I can get more work done and more mixing done. And when I'm not in the studio, I can do a lot of my admin work. Like I'm sitting there in bed before I go to sleep. And instead of watching Netflix, on one set of computer monitor, I've got, something like Nail the Mix on, and I'm watching somebody else mix, getting inspired, getting some ideas, getting some education in. And on the other one, I'm sitting there on like a spreadsheet, like, okay, I did this band today. I sent this invoice, I tracked this, etc. So you can find ways in little pockets of time. Instead of wasting time doing things that are unproductive, you can get more focused and more effective. So that's something that I would do if you are trying to create more time in your life for music, but you don't have a lot of time. So you can be more effective and then start transitioning into doing it. So, all right, I think I've gone on about time management. We've talked about it professionally and aspiring. Hopefully this gives you some ideas on some strategies and some ways that you can be more effective, whether you're doing music for a living or you want to do music for a living or just find time to do music in your life. Hopefully these strategies will help you achieve a little bit of more of that. As always, if you want to pick up some good mixing content and stuff like that, please hit me on TikTok and Instagram. It's at Joel Wanasek. I'm doing, music reaction videos and rants on this channel. So click the notification bell, subscribe, and comment below if you've got anything in particular you want me to go on and rant about. Thank you so much for watching. And again, I hope this is helpful for you.